Hello. You are listening to CPA Career Path Podcast with Rosie Flaherty, CPA MSA. This is episode number 33. We wrap up the discussion with Connor about his CPA journey. After you working by yourself for 4 years, exactly 4 years and 2 months, and then you decide to merge with another person and then starting another practice to extend that to add tax. Can you just walk me through how you decide to make that move and how do you know that that's a good decision?
So the timeline is a little different. So after about 2 years of being self-employed and doing accounting work and dealing with the bookkeeping and all that stuff, I had clients that were coming to me with problems that I was just not equipped to handle. Things like, I haven't filed taxes in 2 or 3 years. I got IRS problems, stuff like that. Can you help me? And I was losing prospects because I did not have the ability to do that. I barely knew how to file a client's tax return. I had to find an easier to use, easy to use tax software that I could, I think I ended up over the course of I did like half a dozen tax returns. That was it, because I was telling clients, look, I can do a return for you. I am not a tax accountant. I'm not a tax CPA. My expertise is in the financial side. I am going to take your numbers, put them into the software, generate a return. If you want any sort of advice, any sort of guidance, or you after the fact go, hey, we could have done, there was this thing we could have done. Why didn't we do it? This is my disclosure to tell you that's not what I do. You're not allowed to get mad. Because some people were like, look, I have an S Corp. I just need you to take the numbers, put them into the tax software, and file the return. I was like, all right, cool. I can do that. But as I was starting to lose prospects, started to have these more complicated projects come along, I knew I needed someone with tax expertise to help clients, just from a client service standpoint and from a competition standpoint. I knew I was losing work because I did not have the tax expertise. And so I sent out a couple messages, tried to find some other freelance people, and had sent like a message to my current tax partner, who at the time was a manager at RSM, saying, hey, are you just interested in doing some tax work on the side? I got a few clients that need it and all that. And like a true friend, his response was, no, I just started a new job. I'm too busy. Cool. I decided to reach out to him because we'd worked together at the accounting firm when I was a staff. He was on the tax side. We got along really well. I knew he really knew his stuff. And so I sent, that I was like, hey, he'd be a kind of a great fit. We got a good personality match. And he's like, nah, sorry. I just started a new job as a manager at RSM. I got no time. Like, all right, cool. So went through that tax season, ended up filing about a half a dozen returns. Had some other discussions with some other people for potentially some working relationships. And then once that tax season was over, he had messaged back out and was like, hey, are you still looking for someone to partner up with? Because I don't want to do this anymore. I'm tired of the 100-hour plus work weeks. And I was like, yes, let's go.
Awesome.
So we decided to start with basically a separate but equal working arrangement. I had my own LLC set up. He had his own LLC set up. We would work together, but we maintained our separate operations because we have seen enough clients that had gotten in bed with business partners too quickly, and it got messy, out of hand, and just wasn't good. And we wanted to make sure before something like that, it was easy to get divorced, basically. Real easy to get divorced if you never get married in the first place. You just go, hey, I'm leaving. They go, all right, cool, I'll see you. So we did that for 12 months, 18 months. I cannot, for the life of me, the last few years, some of the timings kind of blur together. He ended up he was able to pick up a bunch of work on his end because he's really good. I had clients in complicated engagements I was bringing to him. And over the course, he ended up hiring, 2 employees to help with the tax work and start getting them trained up and all that. And so we hit the end of 2022 and said, look, this thing's going great. We know we can work together. We know we get along. We've got visions for the future that are in congruence. We also know that We are not an echo chamber for each other because we do have differences in opinions on how to do things, and we can talk through our differences and make sure that we're both on the same page and understand why the other person is saying what they're doing. Let's just go ahead and form a full-fledged firm, because for our marketing, for saying who we are, it comes across as more professional and more sophisticated when you are one accounting firm and you've got the full name and you say this is who we are, versus, yeah, I've got my thing, he's got his own thing, we kind of work together, and clients go, well, that doesn't fully make sense to me, and it's like, fair enough. It's a little difficult to explain. So we, at the beginning of this year, we formalized, signed all the paperwork, did all that fun stuff, and created Markov and Malatesta CPAs. And it's been great because I hate tax work, he hates financial accounting work, so each of us has no interest in getting involved in what the other one does. We just work together and stay very hands-off with how the engagements are handled. I let him handle project management, all that pricing, all that stuff, because I don't know what's involved in doing a tax return besides the 6 little stupid ones that I did that he was like, yeah, you're not doing tax returns anymore. I was like, fair enough, that's why you're here. And he doesn't like dealing with the financial side, the cleanups, getting involved in a lot of the day-to-day things. And so, we each kind of stay relatively hands off of each other's engagements, because he knows his work far better than I do, and I know my stuff better than he does. And so it's a really great working, experience. He brought a lot of necessary practical work experience to the partnership that I just didn't have because I was an idiot and got started after being a staff for 2 years. So there was a lot of things that I just never saw, never got to experience, particularly on the tax side, or knew that these were things that he had seen. All that he'd constantly been pulling for these different projects and trying to do the most complicated returns he could. Didn't really help him, because I still regularly bring him engagements where he's like, I've never dealt with this before, and I go, hey, that's what I do. I find the weird stuff. And so it's been an interesting transition to taking 2 separate operations and then turning it into a virtual accounting firm, how we share resources, how to make sure that there's not information silos going on, how to make sure that each of us has the adequate support that's needed, projecting out our relevant cash flows. It's, how do we ensure that when we are selling tax work, that we're also making sure to sell the accounting services work. When I'm selling bookkeeping and got this cleanup work, how do I make sure to start laying the groundwork for picking up the tax engagement and knowing what the tax problems are going to be, so that it's less of 2 separate operations, but we are a one coherent, kind of unified unit. And it's fun. It is kind of fun to figure out how to do all this stuff. It is a challenge. I have learned more about tax work over the last couple of years than I ever really wanted to, but a lot of it comes into how do we make things better on our end so that we can provide better service to our clients, and make sure that we are, because we set ourselves up as the kind of the quality option out there, because none of us is interested in kind of competing for bottom barrel prices. So how do we ensure that we can kind of back up what we say? And so it's been, everything, it's constantly a work in process. There's no business out there that has all their stuff figured out and is perfect. So there's always new things to kind of improve and work on, how to expand, what to do. But that is part of why it is fun to have your own business and work through all that, because you get to make those decisions instead of being subject to the whims of somebody else who's making decisions where this isn't going to work, and then they do it, and then you're sitting there going, I could have told you that.
Interesting stories. A lot of fun in there. A lot of, I would say, adventures.
It is wild. It is wild once you do make that step, going from just an employee working for somebody else to self-employed or as the business owner. Every week, you never know what's going to happen. I don't really plan anything out really longer than maybe a week and a half in advance, because I just never know. I never know when an email is going to come in this week, or I'm going to get a message through something where suddenly we've got someone who needs there's a hot job, or we've got to, we got to shift around what we're doing. or there's a new type of engagement that somebody wants to have us handle, and now we got to do our homework to make sure, can we do it? And it just every week is a new adventure. It's a new experience. There's new surprises. It's never boring. I will say that there's no sense of monotony to anything unless I've got to sit down and categorize a couple thousand QuickBooks transactions. Then that gets monotonous. But the work itself, the business side, even a lot of the projects, every client that comes with a set of problems, some that they know, some that they don't know, but you're going to know from past experience. I mean, every client ends up being unique. The execution for their project in many circumstances is similar, but these extenuating circumstances, the what information is available, how are we going to do this, who needs to be put where on the list of priorities, it's constantly changing. And I mean, it keeps it fun instead of just, for me, I don't like I know what's going to happen for the next 6 months. I know this is what we're doing. I just show up and do this thing. I do enjoy the constant change, the constant challenge, the having to make decisions on what to do. Keeps it fun. It's tiring, but it is rewarding.
That's awesome. I like that. It's tiring, but it's rewarding.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
We're hitting the end here now that we finished our first year. I'm currently working on building out the advisory side of our firm. So it's figuring out, okay, how can we advertise some of our advisory services better? What certs do I now need to go get my hands on so that I can have additional letters after my name to make us more marketable? What are other service lines that I can go out and study and learn how to do so that we can now offer that to clients? Things like valuation services, which has been something that I've been constantly told there's not a whole lot of people that are doing that. So I'm like, damn it, I gotta go study. And then as I start studying it, I go, wait a minute, this is that finance stuff that I hated in college. All comes full circle.
Oh, man. I can talk to you all day long, talking so much fun about what you are doing. That's so much to share about.
I mean, if you've got another 6 hours, we can continue to go into things. I mean, it's been an experience. I mean, a lot of it when you tell the story, it is a lot funnier than going through it. Your best learning experiences are the ones where things get jacked up. I have really discovered the wisdom in this, but the partner I used to work for used to say that experience is that thing you get 5 minutes or 15 seconds, somewhere like that, after you need it. And I have had multiple times sitting there going, Scott, you were right. It's been, I mean, there's been a lot to learn from it, and that's not even counting all the lessons that we've learned from clients that, we are fortunate in public accounting that we get exposure, particularly when you're not working on the large public company side. When you're dealing with smaller companies, we get to see on a regular basis, probably over the course of a week, a month, more businesses than most people will ever interact with, sometimes over the course of their lives. If you really think down and say, if you've got a client list of 40 businesses that you regularly interact with, that's 40 businesses that you can learn from. How many people legitimately have the opportunity over the course of their lives to learn from 40 businesses, right? Even somebody that works over the course of 30 or 40 years probably won't work at 40 different places. But we get to see all that and we get to learn from it. And it really is, to me, it's fascinating because every business is different. Every business owner is different. And the rate of learning that you get from everything oftentimes puts you far ahead of other people that, they go from working private, working for companies. They get to know one company or maybe one industry really, really well. For me on the public side, what I love is we just get to see and learn so much because everyone comes to us with a problem. We got to figure out what the problem is and then how to solve the problem. And part of that's getting to know them. You deal with 300 clients once you're really dealing with a whole lot, or if you're managing a bunch of stuff. again, that's 300 businesses you may be learning from. That, that is a way, a privilege of working in public accounting. There's not really a whole lot of other industries or professions that get to kind of do that same thing. Attorneys maybe are the closest if they're doing something that deals with businesses. We end up being, in a way, kind of probably the investment funds, the hedge funds, the guys that do a lot of that investing. They're about the closest that would deal with as many businesses that we do, if not more. But there's our some of the investment people I know I've had opportunities to interact with. I could say things that I'm not going to in the company, but they're about the closest ones where you get that level of exposure to so many different things. And it is rewarding when you have a client that you get to help them work through their problems, get stuff into place, and at the end of it they say, I am thankful and grateful for our ongoing relationship, for what you've done to help us. Because let's face it, in our normal working careers, we don't get the opportunity too often to be told, hey, I appreciate you. So when it happens, it's rewarding.
It is a lot of interesting stories that you share during this interview. I believe a lot of people will learn from it. And before we wrap up this interview, I was wondering if there are any last tips that you would like to share for either for new people who just graduate from college and then they just looking for like how to grow their career, or either for people who just transition into different career from another career to accounting career. What would be your last tips and advice you provide them?
I think the biggest one I've been seeing lately is get your CPA license, because so many current CPAs are, for lack of a better word, old, and they're going to be retiring soon or in the process of retiring, and we are already in a shortage of CPAs. And from a pure, I'm going to talk about the kind of the monetary aspect here, because let's face it, for a lot of people, when they're making a decision what they want to do, what you're going to get paid factors into it. It is nice to get paid. There is going to be an increasing shortage of CPAs, and for those that are there to catch up the slack, you're going to be afforded opportunities that normally would not be there out of sheer necessity of people looking to find a CPA. I got lucky with COVID. I had clients that we picked up because COVID literally killed their previous accountant. They had an aging accountant. COVID came through and it got them, and we have picked up clients like that, which is a morbid thing to say, but it's the truth for some of our clients. And they already talk about the pipeline shortage, and they talk about the lack of accountants. There's a lot that goes into it besides just crunching numbers, that from an entrepreneur standpoint, there is a ton of opportunity, because really the overhead or the infrastructure you need to be a CPA in public practice is not a lot. You need a license and you need a computer. And probably you've got once you get the first one, really you've done the hard part. There is so much opportunity out there. There are so many new businesses that are coming into their own, that are looking for newer perspectives on how things should work. I have seen so much the differences in how some of the older, more established firms or practitioners out there run their operations, how they advise their clients, that they are still doing things like they were 20 or 30 years ago. And so much has changed just over the last 5. Let's face it, since 2020, there are very few aspects of our current society that are the same as before COVID. I mean, a pandemic is going to do that. And for those that are wondering, is it worth getting the CPA license? Is it worth going into accounting? I'm just not sure. There is a ton of opportunity, particularly for entrepreneurs out there, to go and make a good living for themselves, that you end up not being dependent on someone else to make your paycheck for you. You know, the horror stories of the long hours getting burned for somebody else so that, you know, a partner at a large firm can go buy another yacht. You don't have to fall into that. You can have your own thing. You can start your own business and have your own operation and really be the master of your destiny, because this is such an undersupplied profession at this point because of some of the educational hurdles, the cost, all of that. For those that can overcome that hurdle, there is a ton of opportunity out there.
I love it. Yes, go for CPA. Why not? Why you had to hesitate between being a CPA and being an accountant? Absolutely. If you are already an accountant, why not just going for a CPA? It makes your life and your career just a lot better. You get a
I
lot that
mean,
more trust from clients.
there's so much more respect given to those that have their CPA license versus those that don't. Because, unfortunately, for those that don't, there are a lot of people out there who call themselves accountants that are not even really bookkeepers. You know, accountant is not a protected title. CPA is. I've had discussions with people to explain to them, this is what we are, this is what we do, this is what some of the other ones do, and this is why you're running into problems. Having that title means that you are held to a higher standard, but it also means that you do command more respect. When you tell people, I am a licensed CPA, it is just about the same as telling them I am an attorney. You know, there's that level of respect that is commanded to it that, I mean, I'll be totally upfront. It is nice. It is nice to introduce yourself to you know, to other people and say I'm a CPA, and they go, "Oh wow, really?" It's like, yeah, it's a nice feeling. You get to have that boost from it. That, I mean, I'll be honest. We want to talk about rebranding the CPA profession. It is really nice to get the confidence boost from saying that and have people going, "Oh, you must be a big deal." You don't even have to be a big deal, but they still think that. And you go, "Oh, this is nice. I kind of like this." Yeah,
Yeah,
I kind of like people going, "Oh, you're a CPA." You're like, "Yeah, yeah, I am."
I still remember I went to my dentist appointment, and then the dentist asked me, "Oh, so what do you do?" And I was like, at the beginning, I said, "Oh, I'm just
And
an
did
accountant."
you respond with the hey hey?
Wow, when my mouth closed, I can talk. And so I'm doing tax, and then the dentist said, "Oh, so are you a CPA?" And I said, "Oh, yes, I'm a CPA." And he just like, oh, he just light up on his face, and it's like, "Oh my God, so you're doing tax, and that's awesome." I was like, "Wow, it feels good."
Yeah. Of course, when you're not on the tax side, the problem I always got to do is explain to people. They go, "Oh, so do you do taxes?" No, I don't. Now let me explain all the things that I actually do. I don't, just because I'm a CPA does not mean that I do tax work. That's really what we don't need to work on, the rebranding of the profession. We need to explain to people that there's more to being a CPA than just doing bloody taxes.
I got to that case because when I work in audit before, when I go outside, people always say, "Oh, you a CPA. I have a tax question for you." I had no clues about tax at that point, and I was like, I'm a CPA, but I'm not doing tax. So yes, I was on your shoes before.
Yeah, and it's even more fun when you try to sell those services. How do I explain to people? No, there is more. There's more to this than just tax work. Of course, the fun part I have is trying to explain the importance of counting to business owners, which could probably be another hour and a half long conversation in and of itself. I've actually, whenever this airs, I've got a class that I'm trying to set up for people in my local community to explain to them. All right, so you got a business. Why is accounting important? Why is payroll important? Why should you not screw up your payroll? Here's all the things that you as a new business owner need to do so that you don't have to call me after the fact. Because let's face it, I prefer helping you when things are going smoothly. I don't want you to come up to me and say, "Hey, the IRS is threatening to send me to prison because I didn't pay my payroll taxes." And now we go, "Well, that really sucks. Let's see if we can get you out of this." There's I could have a whole separate conversation on our role in financial literacy here in the here in the States, but that's kind of beside what we're talking about.
Now, that's just conclude saying that being a CPA is amazing. You should definitely go for it. If you are listening to this podcast or watching this video, I couldn't find any reason to not be, except that you have to put a lot of hours in to pass the CPA exam and make sure you have the hours in order to get the license. Other than that, you are a CPA. So yeah.
I mean, let's face it, compared to some of the other professions, we don't have to go through 10 years of medical school, and
Exactly.
don't have to go through 3 years of law school and all that to get to get licensed, and we can do work all over the country. We are better than attorneys because we have mobility. Once you're licensed, once you're licensed in one, you are, for all intents and purposes, effectively licensed in all, just with some caveats. So, I mean, of the professional licenses that you can get, really, we've got one of the best. It's kind of nice.
I absolutely agree with you about that. Thank you so much for the interview today. A lot of great tips and advice, and especially a lot of amazing stories. I love those stories.
I do love telling a good story.